when you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality? Who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
The Justice Network is here. If you haven't tuned in, you're missing a great lineup of gripping stories of real crime, plus an unprecedented effort by viewers like you to play an active role in making your community safer. You can help support law enforcement by providing information that may lead to the apprehension of dangerous criminals or find a missing child. Great shows and your chance to fight crime, only on the Justice Network.
Hi, I'm John Manos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Wednesday morning. Glad you're here. We're going to have kind of a dual project here today. We're talking politics out of Iowa, and in the second part of our program, we will talk about human trafficking. We've got Dennis Hart on the phone in the first part, though, talking Iowa politics and Donald Trump. Back with his phone call in just a moment. Glad you're back here on the program on a Wednesday morning. I got to inform you about tomorrow's program and Friday before we get going with Dennis Hart. And that is tomorrow we're going to talk about this new film that came out. It's called Arm, Arm. We'll have the filmmaker, the producer, and the director of this new film that debuts this weekend to talk about that project, and it's a pretty incredible film. He'll be in here. He'll take your phone calls tomorrow, and then on Friday we have Lieutenant Joe Gomez from the Fresno Police Department to talk about these recent police-involved shootings. There have been 4, I believe, in the last month or so. Joe will take your phone calls, gladly talk about Fresno PD. We might even get into Keith Foster and some other goodies with our friend Joe Gomez from Fresno PD. But time to switch to politics, and as you know, it's not all that far away. I'm talking about the Iowa caucus. All eyes will be on the state of Iowa come February. That's, 5 months away, and they are usually, every 4 years, the center of attention. Everything focuses on Iowa. They play a major role every 4 years in the presidential race. As you all know, the presidential candidates are shuffling their way into Iowa, out of Iowa, then back into Iowa. They're pressing the flesh, trying to get as much exposure as they possibly can. And I'll tell you one guy who is there right now getting a lot of exposure, and that's our Dennis Hart. Our media expert is in Iowa for the month. He is talking to candidates. He is talking to voters and people. Dennis, you're there right now. How are you, sir?
I am here. Good afternoon. Good morning to you, John. It is noontime here, and it's not quite high noon politically here, but I'll tell you what, as you say, Iowa remains the hotbed of political activity in the entire country because the caucuses are on February 1st. Candidates are constantly floating in and out of the state, among them Chris Christie. He was in Des Moines yesterday picking up some endorsements, but he's doing very poorly in the Des Moines Register poll here. He's only getting 1 or 2% of Iowa Republicans. Ben Carson is coming to town, Des Moines, on Friday. Carly Fiorina, Ted Cruz, Bobby Jindal, all here last week, all planning to come back. There is also this giant media campaign that you are not seeing in California. Lots of television ads here because the caucuses are on February 1st. One of the biggest ad campaigns is being run by a conservative group against Donald Trump. Trump himself has not bought any ads here, but I think on your screen right now I have sent you a picture of the Club for Growth Group's ad, an anti-tax organization which is paying thousands of dollars for advertisements in Des Moines television newscasts against Donald Trump. They are saying he is not a true conservative. These are conservative businessmen who would much rather have a Jeb Bush as their candidate instead of Trump because they can't be sure about Trump. Speaking of Jeb Bush, he has just made a major television buy, running lots of ads here on the Des Moines newscast. He's spending $8 million that he's just committed to on Monday in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. His ads are all over Des Moines television as well as Cedar Rapids and every other major television market in this state. Now, Bush is polling very poorly here. He's third or fourth, and he's polling poorly nationally. But he has $114 million in fundraising that he's done, far more than anybody else. So he is hanging in there, and his fundraisers have essentially told him he needs to make a move in the polls in the next month or so, or they're going to reconsider. So this is a critical time for him, thus his TV buys. Marco Rubio also has new momentum here in Iowa. He's buying a lot of TV time, and you see one of his ads on your screen right now, a picture from that ad. He is probably, at worst, third in the polls or fourth here. He has new momentum after that second Republican debate, and he is perceived as a possible alternative to Trump should Trump fall. Bobby Jindal, desperately trying to hang on here in Iowa. He has bought lots of TV time, but seems to have no traction here. You can barely turn on a newscast without seeing some kind of Bobby Jindal ad, the governor of Louisiana. But again, no traction whatsoever seemingly here in the polls. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton has bought a whole lot of ad time all over the state. She is spending tons of money on TV commercials. But having talked with many, many Democrats here in Iowa in the last 3 weeks, she absolutely does not have an enthusiastic backing here in this state. The people who are backing her seem to be doing so out of a sense of obligation, that it's her turn. The enthusiasm clearly is on the side of Bernie Sanders, who has bought no TV time in Iowa whatsoever that I've seen. But Sanders has this incredible grassroots campaign going on here in Iowa. Plenty of enthusiasm. In the latest Des Moines Register poll, in spite of having no TV ads, Sanders is ahead of Hillary Clinton here in Iowa. It's close, but he's ahead of her. And the leader here in Iowa on the Republican side is Donald Trump. Now, I was on an Ames radio station, Ames, Iowa radio station, being interviewed on Friday as a Californian talking about Iowa politics. And I talked about, how the rest of the country looks at the Iowa caucuses. I said, first of all, they don't understand how they work, but the importance of the caucuses. This is a very small state, 3 million people, very homogenous, not a lot of minorities in Iowa. So why do the caucuses have such an impact? The reason is that while they often do not predict the winner of the primary race, the primary season, they can kill somebody who's in front, as they did with Hillary Clinton in 2008. She was the big leader, supposedly, here in Iowa. Caucus night came, Barack Obama defeated her, and that started her fall. Iowa began Hillary Clinton's demise. Now, on the Republican side, 4 years ago, Rick Santorum just barely won the caucuses over Mitt Romney. Obviously, he is not president, did not get the nomination. 8 years ago, Mike Huckabee won the Republican caucuses. So the caucuses, John, are not infallible, but they can kill a candidate who is perceived to be a front runner who doesn't do well. And this time around, they're particularly important for Hillary Clinton. If she loses Iowa to Sanders, she's almost certainly going to lose New Hampshire the following week. That could be a real bad blow for her, John.
Okay, Dennis, we're running short on time here, but I want to ask you two questions. That is about the polls. Okay, the latest NBC Wall Street Journal poll, it is Donald Trump with 21%, Ben Carson with 20%, and then followed by Rubio and I think it's Fiorina and then Rubio. But the fact of the matter is Ben Carson is closing in. He doesn't have much of a personality, a lot of people say. Trump is sucking up all the air. How is Ben Carson making a move? We know why Fiorina is. She did well in that debate. But how do you explain Ben Carson?
I think it's relatively simple on Carson. He's got the evangelicals vote. Trump is not getting any of the religious vote. That's not his campaign. Carson's getting all of the evangelicals here in Iowa, and that's who he's really playing for. You're absolutely right. The top three vote getters, or at least in the polls for the Republicans, Trump, Carson, Fiorina, have absolutely no governing experience. Not one of them's ever been elected to a public office. The Republican Party right now is running a campaign of protest, not governance. This could potentially be disastrous for them because at some point, some level-headed people have to get into the heads of the voters here and say, do you really want not to have any platform, not to govern? You just want to protest? And in terms of and this plays out in the Planned Parenthood defunding thing, which seems to have been diffused by John Boehner's resignation. But the bottom line being, Boehner would not go along with the crazies, the right-wingers in his own party, because he fully understands they can't govern. They can only destroy. And so the Republican Party primary voters have to decide at some point, do they really want to go down this road, which could lead them to a Barry Goldwater type debacle? You recall in 1964, Goldwater ran as an extreme rightist against Lyndon Johnson and lost everything, just got buried in one of the great landslides in American history. Republicans are going to have to make that decision down the road.
Dennis, one more question. What's the buzzword in Iowa regarding John Boehner? Of course, he's going to resign at the end of October. And then the fact of the matter is, Planned Parenthood on the hot seat in Congress yesterday, with all the videos coming out, the head of Planned Parenthood in there testifying before a congressional committee. What about this talk that the government may shut down partially tomorrow?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. The Senate's already passed a funding bill this morning. The House is going to take it up later. That's part of the deal of Boehner leaving. He's going to go with Democrats to get a funding bill through because he's had it with his Republican crazies. The latest poll show, and I just saw this today, the latest Pew poll shows that 70% of all Americans, including 56% of all Republicans, do not want the government shut down because of Planned Parenthood. In other words, most Republicans do not want that to happen. So you've got this crazy group in Congress trying to shut down the government over something their people don't want to have happen. That's one of the reasons Boehner was forced to resign. He couldn't work with these crazies anymore. In answer to your question specifically, Republicans and Democrats here are absolutely dumbfounded that Boehner was forced to quit because he couldn't, the right wing of his own party wouldn't work with him. They know nothing about Kevin McCarthy. I've had to tell them that McCarthy's probably the best, the Bakersfield Republican who's likely to become Speaker. He's probably the best they can get in terms of somebody to work with because while McCarthy was backed initially by the Tea Party folks, he's no longer backed by them because he wants to actually work to make government function. He doesn't want to shut it down. The Tea Party folks don't want that at all. They just want to, they're nihilists. They want to destroy the government, essentially.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Nobody knows much about McCarthy here. I've been helping to educate them, John. You'll be happy to know, both on radio and in person here.
All right. Dennis Hart, I appreciate it very much. Are we going to talk to you next Wednesday again?
John, I am actually flying back to California. I'm going to be, the next time you'll hear from me is live on your show where we'll take some phone calls.
You got it. All right. Dennis Hart, I appreciate it. Have a good day. Have fun in Iowa covering the Iowa politics, the political scene there. The caucuses start, of course, February the 1st. We're going to be back with our next guest here on the program, 436 MeTV Option 11. We'll talk about one of the most absurd, and I mean disturbing topics known to mankind, human trafficking. Back in just a moment.
The following is a list of celebrities you will not see on MeTV programs. Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Snooki, Paris Hilton, Perez Hilton, Honey Boo Boo, Justin Bieber, Simon Cowell, Chris Brown, Miley Cyrus, and the Real Housewives of any place. This is who you will see on MeTV programs. Lucy, Ralph, Mary, Perry, Gilligan, Kenneth, Spock, Batman, Rowdy, Festus, and the Beaver. MeTV. Thanks for watching.
Hello, I'm John Walsh. The Justice Network is seen here in Fresno and made possible by the Ventura Broadcasting Company. To see how law enforcement all across Central California are fighting crime, watch Local Choice with Austin Reed, where you'll see interviews and special reports with those who keep us safe every day. Local Choice with Austin Reed, daily on the Justice Network, Fresno, exclusively on KVBC Channel 13.5.
Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're the save energy, save time, save money place. The Energy Star qualified #1 rated high-efficiency Cabrio from Whirlpool Place. You heard right. Right now, save big on select Whirlpool Cabrio laundry pairs and pay no interest when paid in full within 6 months. At the hometown low price, think outside the big box place. Since 1951, Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're working hard to be your place.
Untamed Sports is now on KBHF 4.3.
Glad you're along here on the program on a Wednesday morning. We're going to talk about human trafficking in just a moment, but time to remind you that you're watching us live on Comcast Channel 375 as usual each and every Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. That's on Comcast Cable, Xfinity, if you want to call it that. And then if you have over-the-air broadcasting, it's 43.6 and 13.1. The replay comes later in the day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6, U2, and 8 o'clock tonight, primetime, 4.6 Biz TV. The Twitter account has not changed. It's the same at John Mallos, Me TV. And so I've got to tell you, my friends, I had a hard time just wrapping my entire brain around this topic last night and today. And even though it's an important topic, it's just hard for me to grapple. And I'm talking about human trafficking. It amounts to nothing more than modern day slavery. It's the only way to explain it, the only way to get this thing out on the table. Let's roll the videotape. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, my friends. There are thousands, and I mean thousands, of people who are kidnapped, sold, then used as sex slaves or other forms of abuse for money. It's all for money. That's what it's for. And when you consider how many people across the globe living in foreign countries are so desperate to escape their current situation, which could involve poverty, could involve disease, abuse, or all of the above, there's only one place that they want to come, and that is the good old US of A. Those involved in trafficking, though, go after their victims in whatever way that they possibly can. They recruit through enticement, coercion, psychological manipulation, or they are physically forced into a life of prostitution or labor, whatever it takes, my friends. Then they are transported here to this country or elsewhere, but more often than not, the victims end up living a life of torture, trauma. Every year, roughly 15 to 20,000 people are trafficked into the U.S. How pervasive is sexual trafficking of children, you ask? Well, right now it's estimated that some 200,000 kids around the world are being held in bondage. The majority of them are women and children under the age of 18. It is a $32 billion industry across the globe, and it's happening right here in our own backyard, in California, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, San Diego is where most of it is taking place. Live in our studio right now is Bishop David Rice of the Episcopal Diocese of the San Joaquin Valley. He is here to talk about human trafficking and what he is trying to do to try to prevent it, and about the bike ride that's coming up very shortly. It's a bike ride from the southern part of California, well, not way down south, but pretty far south, all the way up to Modesto. He'll talk about that bike tour to raise money. 436 Me TV, option 11, human trafficking. Disturbing and just downright disgusting. Back in just a moment.
When you're looking for Whirlpool innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified Whirlpool appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Take a look at this. Let's play.
This is too hip for you. I'll slow down.
Let's play.
Watch all your favorite classic game shows on Buzzer TV, KBBC Digital Channel 13.7. Watch Dr. TV on over-the-air channel 13.9.
Hello, I'm John Walsh. The Justice Network is seen here in Fresno and made possible by the Ventura Broadcasting Company. To see how law enforcement all across Central California are fighting crime, watch Local Choice with Austin Reed, where you'll see interviews and special reports with those who keep us safe every day. Local Choice with Austin Reed, daily on the Justice Network, Fresno, exclusively on KVBC Channel 13.5.
So today we're talking about a topic that isn't too pleasant, but we have to talk about it. Here is Bishop David Rice from the Episcopal Diocese of the San Joaquin Valley. Welcome, welcome again, Bishop. I'm glad to see you. And this is a very, I described it as disgusting, disturbing, unbelievable. I guess any adjective that you want to use, throw it out there, right?
Oh, it's all the above. There's no question about that. And
Yeah.
again, it's good to be back. Thank you. A couple of things concerning your intro, which was stunning. I appreciate that. I think there's a misnomer that when we talk about human trafficking, we're talking about people being brought offshore into the boundaries of the United States. That does happen. It is a monumental problem. But equally is the problem that we have people who are born and bred in this country who are being trafficked. And again, John, when I talk about trafficking, I'm talking about both labor and sex trafficking.
Yeah.
A couple of other things you said, and you used some of the language, that we typically talk about 3 words as a measure for human trafficking. One is fraud, the second is force, and the third is coercion. If any of those 3 are in play, then someone is being trafficked. And the other thing is, and this is about California, that there's no child prostitution. So if you're 18 or younger, it's trafficking.
But you know,
That's
you
law.
just said something very interesting. You used the words fraud, forced, coercion. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, there are some people trapped in marriages that you can describe in that same fashion.
Of course you could. I think we could apply those words to all sorts of things in society.
So are some people trapped in marriages that could involve coercion, fraud, and they're almost, maybe they're not being trafficked, but, and I know I'm getting off topic
That's all right.
here,
Yeah.
but is that a possibility?
Well, it is a possibility. I guess the query is how they entered into that covenant in the first place, or
Gotcha.
marriage in the first place.
Yeah.
In this instance, we are talking about slavery, and you used that language, and you used
Right.
it appropriately about human trafficking. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that the average age of a young person being trafficked is around 12 years of age.
My God, that's my daughter's age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, in your intro, you talked about in California, we have 3 of the top 10 cities in this country, in California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego, where it's most prevalent. And what that means is, in terms of Central California, namely my diocese, the Episcopal Diocese of San Joaquin, is that we become a major vein thoroughfare for those being trafficked.
Yeah, I saw I mean, I've watched in the last few days or so numerous videos on YouTube regarding trafficking, and one of the most disturbing videos I saw, and I immediately thought of my kids, is just on the streets of America, the United States of America. I saw in this one video, this girl was just, boom, she was picked up right off the street, walking home from school, snatched up, thrown in the back of looked like an SUV,
Yep.
boom,
Yep.
gone,
Yep.
gone.
Yep. Second largest crime, or at least it's approaching the second largest crime worldwide.
But what I just described, how often does that happen? This happened right in
Yeah.
front of that girl's mother.
Yeah.
Is that happening?
Of course it's happening. I don't have the statistics on that, but it does occur that way. It does occur that way.
Right off the streets of America?
Well, and also equally insidious, and here this statistic, this is so disconcerting. Around 46% of those being trafficked are being trafficked by those they know. Think about that. So it's
an uncle,
a family member, someone they've known through friendship,
friend.
someone in their community. I mean, that's a different scenario altogether than what you just framed. 46%. That is overwhelming and extraordinary, to say the least. So not only do we have people being, to use a Kiwiism, pinched or stolen off the streets, we have people through, again, coercion, force, and fraud being manipulated into this crime in this place of extreme vulnerability.
that is just amazing. I just, 46%, to bring that figure into it, I mean, you're talking about half the people that are trafficked in this country are being done so by a relative, a friend, or someone that they know. So what does that tell you? What kind of a picture does that paint?
Well, the word's anthropological. It says something about our view of human beings, that for some, in order to make a dollar, humanity becomes a commodity, and a usable commodity. So rather than selling drugs, which is also one of the top crimes in the world, you sell a drug and the drug's gone, but you use a person as a commodity, you use them over and over and over again. And I can't even bring myself to say that. That's so painful to even say, but that's the reality we're facing here with human trafficking.
But it's we expect this kind of thing to happen in a foreign country, whether it's Malaysia, someplace else. Let's say a parent that they're stuck, they want to sell their child. Okay, am I going to be shocked if this happens in Malaysia or China or someplace? No. Am I shocked if it happens here?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Well,
but it is happening here.
We want to see, John, what we want to see. What we're trying to shift here is to see those things we don't want to see, but to see them because we need to see them.
Yeah. Let's take a quick phone call here. Good morning. You're on the air on Connect with Me. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. Well, here in California, like he said, you're talking to L.A., San Francisco, and those big areas. Now, a lot of them are kind of scoped. I knew a person that did that. Like he would say, that they would scope these kids that run away from parents one night and they land here in California. And what they do is, kind of be their friend and a place to stay and whatnot, and then they kind of take over their lives, and like he says. I think law enforcement should be watching for that, because I know they can't be everywhere, but at the same time, it is a big thing that these kids are drawn into, especially young men and women. And most of the people, like that person told me, that are people that have are rich. In other words, they don't go to areas where they are slum area or any place like that. They're nice homes and whatnot, and well, especially the pimp, that's what we call them, is taking a percentage and keeps them clean and buys them their clothing, and a lot of times they have their own doctors, whatever. But at the same time, it's the same thing.
Caller, I have to interrupt. I have to interrupt just for a minute because you're going a little bit long. Caller, do you have a question for our guest today? Because we're kind of short on time.
Make a lot of money because that's just the way that things are, and it's a shame.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess he didn't have a question, but a comment, and he makes some good points.
He certainly makes some good points. And
I appreciate the call. Thank you.
And thank you indeed for me as well. Those are legitimate concerns and points expressed. We are talking about some of the most vulnerable people in our society, and the scenario that he crafted, it certainly can happen that way.
Lieutenant Joe Gomez is going to be here on Friday as my guest from the Fresno Police Department. Maybe I should ask him, what can law enforcement do anything?
Indeed.
What can law enforcement do?
Well, the quick answer is they can do something. So, John, during these, we've had, as I said to you when we were off air, 15 what we've called trafficking awareness events. And we've done that throughout my diocese in all the centers. We've had that with DA offices, mayor's offices, law enforcement, local educators, agencies, organizations, nonprofits, etc. And what we're identifying is, in order to really address this, we have to band together, we have to work together, and we most definitely need law enforcement in boots and all.
What can we do?
Well,
what can we do here at Connect with Me?
We can allow ourselves to be aware. So we're having this conversation. This is huge. And through that awareness, we start looking at our context differently. So, for instance, if you see a young woman with an older gentleman in a place that you think, I'm not sure that fits the context or the circumstance, or there's something odd about that, you need to think about what's going on there.
Well, like an older gentleman. I mean, it could be a grandfather.
It certainly could. It certainly could.
So we don't want to jump to conclusions.
No, we don't.
Maybe
we don't.
We don't want to profile too much.
And I'm not suggesting we profile. I'm not suggesting we ring the police at any notice. But I am saying that
if it looks out of place,
precisely, rather than pretending this is not going on, let's acknowledge that it is going on and be aware of our surroundings. That's
have you talked
all I'm
to
suggesting.
Any of these people that have done the trafficking ever? Have you ever met someone who's actually been caught trafficking?
I have not. The film that we've been showing up and down the valley called The Trafficked Life. It's a short documentary. Basically, it's a series of interviews of survivors of trafficking. The filmmaker's Michael Fagans, and he's co-producer with Doug Bennett from Bakersfield. In that film, they tried to get a trafficker in the interview, and in the end, he backed out. So I have to say personally, I've never met anyone who has perpetuated this crime. What I have noticed, though, over the last year, since I've been talking about this a lot, is I see ever increasingly in newspapers people charged with trafficking. And so things are being done.
Can you go visit these people, either in jail, in prison, wherever they're incarcerated?
I'm sure we could. Again, I've not done that, but I'm sure we could do that.
What drives them? Money?
Again, as a theologian, not a pop psychologist, I would suggest it is about economics. I would suggest it's about power.
Is it more about power than money, do you think?
Well, some might say those are inextricably linked. So I certainly think it's about those two things. And as I said before, using up a commodity or creating a commodity, this becomes dangerous stuff.
They're not afraid to be caught?
Well, I suspect most people who involve themselves in crime convince themselves they're never going to be caught. So being caught's not an issue. But being caught up in something very different. And
see, I'm being too logical here. I can't help it. I mean, don't they think this is the wrong thing to do? What am I doing? I guess
and John,
I'm being too logical.
Well, and again, I don't pretend to answer for those who commit those sort of crimes.
I'm just surmising.
I appreciate that. But again, let's look at some of the numbers. And you said this again in your intro. There are between 14,500 and 17,500 people being trafficked in the United States every year.
Gosh.
This is pandemic. And as I said to you when we last sat together around this desk, when I first started talking about this up and down the Episcopal Diocese of San Joaquin, my diocese with well-intended Episcopalians, my first query was, tell me what you know about human trafficking. And there wasn't much of a response. And then after I did Human Trafficking 101, my second query was, do you think it happens here? And you can guess that response. Oh, no, Bishop, it doesn't happen here.
Not in California,
Thank you. Not in California or not in my backyard. And so what we've said to folk is that be aware it is happening here. It's happening in our cities, our towns, our neighborhoods, and our cul-de-sacs. And assuming that reality, that's the way we begin to make a change and change the world.
What a wake-up. Man, because I mean, before you came here, I never even gave it a second thought. I mean, human trafficking, that goes on in Europe, goes on in Asia. It doesn't happen here. But I went to Trafficking 101, and now I know a little bit more about it. I'm not an expert on anything, but I'm still learning. And the stuff on the internet about trafficking is just phenomenal. All the videos on YouTube, all the information on Google, just Google human trafficking. You'll see all the stories, all the horrifying stories, and even some of those interviews on YouTube. Very disturbing, to say the least. And now I'm wondering, so somebody comes along and just snatches up a kid in broad daylight in front of a mother. I'm thinking about my own kids. Could that happen to my daughter? So I guess, talk to your kids about this. 436-MeTV option 11. If you have a comment, a question, you want to join the conversation, we're back in just a moment.
Revan is now on KVHF Channel 4.4.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Frigidaire Gallery appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start, but you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an Energy Star qualified French door Frigidaire Gallery refrigerator. Quality appliances for the way you live. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise.
Hello, I'm John Walsh. The Justice Network is seen here in Fresno and made possible by the Ventura Broadcasting Company. To see how law enforcement all across Central California are fighting crime, watch Local Choice with Austin Reed, where you'll see interviews and special reports with those who keep us safe every day. Local Choice with Austin Reed, daily on the Justice Network, Fresno, exclusively on KVBC Channel 13.5.
And glad you're here on a Wednesday morning talking about human trafficking here with Bishop David Rice of the Episcopal Diocese of San Joaquin, and certainly a very important topic, and it happens right here in our own backyard. You don't have to go overseas to look at this and experience it and actually know that it's happening. It's happening right here in California, right here in the Central Valley. And Bishop Rice, I gotta run some videotape here. It's called The Tour Against Trafficking, and this is a bike tour that takes place and starts when? Goes from where to where?
It starts this Friday. Starts in Taft, and over 750 miles later, it arrives in Modesto.
Yeah.
23 days, 18 days of cycling. Come one, come all, enjoy.
18 days of cycling.
18 days of one bums on a saddle, spinning throughout the valley. It covers all the parishes and missions in my diocese. And again, to raise awareness concerning trafficking.
Hey, there's the video right there. We can look at some of the mountainsides or some of the hillsides, of course.
And there's a bishop.
What's that?
There's a bishop.
There's the bishop right there. And so you're going to get on your bike and ride for 18 days?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And how many people take part in this bike ride?
Well, on the website, we have over 50 cyclists, but we've encouraged cycle communities, all sorts of folk. We're going to have in some places, I suspect, close to 100 cyclists during these 18 legs, especially as we come through towns and cities.
What does it cost to join the tour?
Not a thing.
Nothing. And how do you raise money through this tour?
So we have 10 agencies, organizations who are going to be the recipients, benefactors of all the proceeds from this tour. We have 2 of those in Fresno. One is the Central Valley Justice Coalition, and the other is the Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission, Central Valley Against Human Trafficking, and again, they're equivalents up and down the valley. The money that comes in, and we've just reached 20,000, goes directly to those organizations, agencies. And those groups, John, are working to eradicate human trafficking, and they're working with survivors and victims of trafficking.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so anybody can join the tour if they want. They don't have to pay anything. But where does the money specifically go? How is it spent? Where is it spent?
Well, again, all these organizations, agencies, in whatever their context is, they're working with the people in question. So, using again language of my place of life in New Zealand, this is contributing to those working at flax roots, grassroots, working with people on the ground, a tangible, palpable difference in their lives. That's what those organizations are doing.
We do have a map of the tour. Let's put the map up and you can see where it starts. You said it starts in Taft this Friday and goes all the way up toward the northern part of the Central Valley in Modesto, and that it kind of zigzags a little bit, right?
It does indeed. And if you look at day 2, I don't have my glasses, but day 2 we go from Bakersfield to Kernville. There's an 8,000-foot climb on that day and over 80 miles that we cover. And then we go to Ridgecrest from Kernville and back to Kernville from Ridgecrest. There's more climbs than that, obviously. Then we come down via Porterville into the heart of the Central Valley. And there's a bit of a respite in terms of climbing over the next few days before we go up into the high country again to places like Oakhurst, Sonora, San Andreas, and Avery.
Wow. So you've got to be in good shape to ride this tour. I mean, if you ride it, and you look like you're in good shape anyway, but is it a problem for you?
I should be okay, either in shape or mad as a meat axe.
Okay, let's take another call here. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Very interesting topic. I watch Telemundo almost every day, and they bring up this subject on the news, and they've interviewed women who have been victims of this kind of, trafficking. And this goes way back to, I have an aunt, 79, and we were from Texas, and she was telling me one time, because she saw this on TV, that way back in Texas, she remembers at least 3 or 4 women from our town got kidnapped.
Oh.
And this has been going on for like forever. And I didn't know any of this. As a matter of fact, one of the women that got kidnapped in Texas, in our town, happened to be the mother of one of her little friends. And they were never to be seen again or heard from, ever.
Not awful.
Thank you, caller. That's really important to say. One of the things we were saying off camera was, we don't remember hearing anything about this in the 60s or, a few decades ago. My guess is this has been going on for many, many years. And
we just didn't hear about it.
We didn't hear about it. And the other thing to say, and one of the reasons I guess we hear about it is because of social media, but unfortunately social media is also used by those who are perpetuating the crime.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But indeed, what you said, I'm sure, is entirely correct.
Yeah. Hey, I want to put up a, we can talk a little bit about this. I want to put up a film clip. It's called Eden. I want to roll that videotape, but let me intro it first. It's a 2012 film, and you probably have seen it. I don't know, but it's an American drama based on human trafficking. It's directed by Megan Griffiths. Jamie Chung stars in it, along with Matt O'Leary and Beau Bridges. You may have seen it. It came out 3 years ago. I want to run the clip now. Go ahead and take a listen.
Lights off. Out there, 50 miles, a wasteland in every direction. Take it from me, this world is a harsh place. Anything could happen. Who picked her up?
Won't be too long now.
You're gonna have to fit into what we do here. My rules are simple.
Today's gonna be a good day. I can feel it.
Yeah, I'm sure I don't have to explain to you the consequences if you cause trouble for me.
How old are you? 15. How old are you? 19. Do they know you're that old? Why? What do they do?
So, who you looking for? The answer is everybody.
I can help you.
You want to help me? You want to be a part of this?
Yeah, nothing like the unconditional love of an animal.
How much does he owe me?
300.
It's one of life's great pleasures.
I'm asking if you're actually committed to this.
You're here with them? ¿Duermes en la cama? What are you gonna do, shoot her?
No. You are.
What do you make of this film, Bishop? Did you see it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I will. It's, again, human rights issue, a crime, an affront against humanity. As someone wearing this color would say, an affront against God and the gospel. This is wrong at so many different levels.
We've got a caller. Go ahead. You've been patient. Thank you, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering, how did the diocese come up with this concern versus, feeding or, the hungry or doing other things? And is it a concern just for the Valley, nationally, or internationally? That's my question.
Thank you. I have it's going to be a rather involved response. I really, really appreciate your query, caller. I was out on a training ride last week up in the high country, and I encountered another cyclist, a woman who is an academic at Fresno State. We were talking, I didn't identify who I was, and she finally said, "Oh, you're that Bishop guy, aren't you?" I think my accent gave me away. And she said to me, "I want you to know it's really cool what you guys are doing." She was aware of our human trafficking work. And then she said, which I found very, very interesting, she said, "I wasn't aware the church did that sort of stuff." So, caller, I want to say that about a year ago, we arrived from New Zealand, where I was bishop, and where we lived for 20 years.
Hang on, caller. Just one moment, please.
A year and a half ago. And upon arrival, I started getting to know the Central Valley of California, namely my diocese, and wanted to glean the concerns and the issues facing us. Yes, poverty is a major issue. Homelessness is a major issue. Human trafficking is a major issue. And I believe we as a church are here to make a difference and to change the world. And the language I use is to join God where God already is.
But why tackle this issue from the church's point of view as opposed to, say, homelessness, hunger, some of the other more traditional type issues?
John, I would say to you and the caller, we address all those issues.
I'm not saying you don't, but why this one?
Well, because I think, again, that we talk about the age group in question, that this is amongst, if not the most vulnerable group in our society.
You're talking about women and children.
Absolutely. We're talking about slavery.
Yeah.
21st century slavery, as you said in your intro.
Girls as young as 12.
Indeed. And so, I mean, and the other, to be scriptural about this, Isaiah talks about bringing release to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, set at liberty those who are oppressed. We're talking about oppressed people. It is our responsibility to make a difference in their lives. Thank you, caller.
Yeah, go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning, John. Bishop, I think one of the major contributors to this human trafficking in our country is the privately owned automobile. Like the bishop said, a girl can be snatched up and put in an SUV and gone. And this happened time and time again. I know it's too much to ask that we grow the good sense to get rid of the common automobile and go to mass transport, but we could at least put transponders in all vehicles so we know where these people are at all times, know where everybody is. And if a child disappears, then the police can be notified and know where they're going.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also, overseas, a lot of these people are coming from Russia. Russia is a den of thieves, as anybody who studies current politics knows, and they're being brought from Russia and are sent to Russia, and nothing happens to them. Even when they're arrested, very little happens to them because corruption is rife in that country.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Good day.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you. That was a great call. Never even thought of that. Put like a low jack type device or a tracking device on every vehicle.
Yeah. Well, I think
would that work?
I suppose it would. I think what's interesting about the call, thank you, caller, is when we get this conversation going, John, then we start thinking about ways in which we can really address this crime in our midst. Yeah. Ideas like that.
Yeah. All right. Going to come back in just a moment here with Bishop David Rice, and we're going to take your calls. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Quickly running out of time. Back in a moment. Austin? Okay. Oop. Freezing up on you? Okay. There you go.
Revan is now on KVHF Channel 4.4.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Whirlpool appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Touch the new Whirlpool Ice Collection. It offers a modern style made to create an inspiring kitchen experience. Save big on this Whirlpool Black Ice or White Ice kitchen. Come into Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Tune in to Heartland for the best in true country music. Relive vintage specials, one-of-a-kind concerts, and country music's earliest videos. Heartland is the heart of country, the only place where you can find country music, country stars, and country lifestyles 24/7. Heartland, the heart of country.
Now on Channel 13.2.
Glad you're here on this Wednesday morning talking about human trafficking, and I want to highlight another film that was made just a couple of years ago. It's called Don't Look Away, and this is a film that highlights the growing problem of human slavery, modern-day slavery. It's about a young woman who is forced into the sex industry. The film explores the physical, emotional, and psychological damage and the effects that it has on the victim. Let's roll that piece of videotape now and take a look.
My boy, it is wonderful to see you.
See you.
And this must be Dana. I have heard so many things about you. It is truly a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure's all mine.
Come, I want to know everything about you. Vincent, I'm just going to take her on a tour of the house. You don't mind, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to grab a drink.
Come on. You know, I have a daughter your age.
Really?
She's currently studying abroad in London.
That sounds wonderful.
Oh, she loves it. She's having the time of her life.
I've never been out of the country.
No. Well, we shall just have to do something about that someday. Oh, Dana, I have to show you this. Watch. Dana, do you like wine? This particular year is very rare and rather expensive. You are a very special young woman. And Vincent is indeed a very, very lucky young man. I'm going to make you a deal. I'm going to do some things to you now. Not gonna hurt you. I'll even take it slow. And in return for your absolute cooperation, I can promise a timely return to your fine young Vincent before daybreak.
All right, and that was a short film, of course, highlighting the fact that human trafficking is taking place in this country. And you talked about that 46%, of course, Bishop Rice. There's your classic example right there. Her boyfriend brought her to that house, that party, okay, to introduce her to the main trafficker, the man with the sport coat.
Yep.
So there's your example right there, and this goes on all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we were talking about how we can respond, and part of this is a cultural change that we have to consider here, John. And
exactly.
The language I've been using as we've been talking about human trafficking in my diocese and beyond is choosing to be unaware, and I think awareness is a choice, equals choosing to be complicit. And if we choose either one of those, we do so at our peril and the peril for whom we're responsible. So we have to make a difference here. I'll put on the T-shirt. This is our Tour Against
Trafficking. I'm just looking at that. It says Tour Against Trafficking.
Yeah, absolutely. So
the tour starts Friday.
I'm rocking the merch. I want to thank some people, if I may.
Absolutely.
We have a number of sponsors. Certainly my diocese, the Episcopal Diocese of San Joaquin. I also acknowledge United Way Kernville, they've been extremely generous, as well as Motor City, which is in Bakersfield. They're supplying the van, which we call the Sag Wagon, in the tour, which follows the cyclist behind. We've also had a number of local supporters, ranging from Fresno dental professionals.
Businesses.
Yes, primarily Jeremy Grabe, who's my dentist, good guy. A couple of bike shops, Rubber Soul Bicycles and Stevens Bicycles. So we've had a long list of people who've really contributed to make this happen. In addition, I need to hasten to insert this, is that we've had 18 dioceses throughout the Episcopal Church, even the Episcopal Diocese of Europe, contributing to this tour. And again, that money, John, goes directly to those local organizations, agencies. So people see what we're doing here in other parts of our church, and they've been responding, and responding in a very generous manner.
I got to ask you before we go, because we got only 2 minutes left, and that is, I know you're not Catholic. I know your church is not Catholic. The Pope's visit meant what to you?
Well, I think Francis rocked it. I thought he was extraordinary. I was saying in my homily last Sunday, I started out, we had confirmations, receptions, and other things up in Stockton, and I said, what a contrast we've experienced over the last couple of weeks. We had all the Donald Trumpisms, building walls, and that sort of exclusive view, and wondering about global warming. And then Francis arrives and uses a very different, what I call gospel rhetoric. There are no walls which should divide. Everybody's in. If we don't address our climate, we don't do that at our own peril, etc. I thought Francis was magnificent. And
what do you think about him visiting, not only having lunch with the homeless and the downtrodden, but also visiting and meeting personally one-on-one with those who were incarcerated?
I thought it was lovely. I thought Francis was completely consistent to how he is and how he's presented himself, certainly since he's been Pope and before.
He even addressed the sex abuse scandal in the church on the way home to Rome. What did you think of that?
Well,
right move? Was it the right move?
I think he made all the right moves.
Yeah.
And again, I can say this for Episcopalians, and as a generalization, I think we were utterly captivated by his visit.
He's like thankful. A rock star, isn't he?
He's an ecclesial rock star, and we should thank God for Pope Francis.
Yeah, I mean, he's so honest and genuine. I mean, a reporter, I don't know what reporter from what network asked him about his Pope-mobile, because it's not fully enclosed, not bulletproof. Obviously, he says, well, what if, it poses a threat? Pope said, look, at my age, 78, somebody takes a pot shot at me, what do I have to lose?
Yeah, indeed. And John, what
do you make of the attitude?
I think the attitude's amazing. And again, I want to say about Francis is that any church leader who says that if the church isn't here to join with people on the margins, we have to question what the church is doing.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
So you really like him?
I do.
You like him?
I like him immensely.
Yeah. There are some differences, though, between the Episcopalians, of course, and the Catholics. A little bit of a difference.
Well, there are some differences. We are certainly kindred spirits, and we share a lineage. Yeah. One of the differences, fortunately for Episcopalians, is I have a wife and a family.
Yeah.
Thanks be to God.
It's okay.
It is okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of doctrinal issues, certainly a lot of justice issues, we are very similar churches.
Yeah, hey, I just want to thank again, yesterday we had a terrific guest, as we did today, terrific again. We had Raymond C. Dreiling. He is the Monsignor for the Fresno Catholic Diocese here. He was a terrific guest. I want to have him back during the holidays, and I'd like to have you back. You were a terrific guest as well.
Well, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Let me say lastly, and about thanking people, I also want to thank the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fresno. And because you mentioned the Monsignor, they're also supporting this tour. And Armando Ochoa, the bishop, who's a good mate of mine, is going to be riding in the tour. So we come through from Hanford to Fresno on the 12th of October. Please be there to join us.
That's great. It's good to see that. Thank you again, Bishop.
Thanks,
I appreciate it. Bishop
Blessings.
David Rice here from the Episcopalian of the San Joaquin. And we're going to be back tomorrow with another program coming your way. We're talking about the film Arum Arum. See you tomorrow. Have a great day.